Hi, this is JR. I just read a discussion on Facebook. I actually haven't read the whole thread yet. It's quite long, but it's so intriguing to me that I wanted to read some of it to you. This is stuff that other people wrote, mostly Jack Kruse, a neurosurgeon. Um, I'll make some comments in the process. Um, so this general subject is health. You could even say science, but in particular science in the application of human health. Um, and I'll begin by this, which is actually the last, it came in sequence last of all the things I'm going to read, but this is what Jack Rhodes wrote at the end. If you're ill and nothing is working, it should be a sign, a huge wake-up call that there is something you don't see that is screwing you in the ass. That is what Jack wrote, and 9 likes for that comment. Now I'm going to back up, and a fellow named Jason is talking about kind of the whole thread is, I think Jason started it, and it's talking about the hierarchy of issues, that there's a hierarchy of issues. Food, for instance, is one issue, but not the only issue in regard to health. So Jason wrote, in response to Christy, light is at the top. It's number one. It's part of the environment equation 24/7, all the time. And I'm going to add, radiation is going on all the time within our bodies. We radiate. Heat is a radiant process. Light is also radiant, and sound and all sorts of different frequencies are radiation or radiant. The visible light spectrum, and the sun is more than just the visible light spectrum, but the visible light spectrum is a particular range of radiation that we have organs specifically designed, our eyes, to be, perceptive about that range of the radiation spectrum, of the frequency spectrum. And most animals do. And of course, plants also respond to light even without eyes. They still respond very reliably to light, to shifting light throughout the year, right, through the annual cycle of many plants, or basically all plants. Evergreen trees don't have the same cyclic properties, but they all cycle. What if animals all cycle for a day and night cycle and annual cycle? What if every animal does that? And we can also note that there are animals that are like way deep in the ocean that wouldn't have the same fluctuation of exposure to light, or creatures that exist in the polar areas of the earth that are going to have very different cycles of light exposure. But generally speaking, there are 24-hour and 365-day cycles of light exposure that every creature on this planet is attuned to. At least the day cycle, because there are some creatures whose life cycle doesn't last an entire year. But the day cycle is like super hardwired into why things are the way they are. So back to what Jason says. You're always exposed to some spectrum of light. Light is a drug. How do we define a drug? Something that provokes a physiological effect when ingested or otherwise introduced to the body. Light produces physiological effects. And they're different for different people. My own comments again. For instance, sunburn is an actual really obvious example of the fact that sunlight causes change when it hits. If it hits a rock, it causes change. It heats up the rock. How does that happen? How does the light excite the rock and cause it to heat up? It's relatively simple physics, I suppose, but it's subatomic. It's this tiny, when I say particle, it's like photons? Are they waves? Are they particles? Well, they're both. That's, physicists will say, well, they're both and they're neither. Okay, but anyway, plants respond to light. All creatures respond to light in some way. Some of us have skin that's super sensitive, or organs like eyes that's really sensitive, but everything responds to light. So back to Jason's final comment here that I'll read. The fact that light is like a drug in that it produces predictable physiological effects, that is why Jack Kruse has been saying people's first priority is to fix their blue light exposure, their exposure to the ultraviolet and the upper portions of the higher frequencies within the visible spectrum. So people get a lot of exposure in modern times to artificial light of limited spectrums, and I'm not going to get into the applications of that right now, but here's now Jack Kruse begins to comment, and I think it's just 2 comments of his, but they're a few, they're like 3 paragraphs, but I'm going to interject some other comments. Jack says, the photoelectric effect of the sun's light is a given in nature, meaning it's always present. The photoelectric effect meaning photons hit other materials such as water and produce electrical consequences, electromagnetic consequences. Here's the basic electromagnetic consequence. Sunlight dissociates water into positive and negative charges, creating charge separation. In other words, you have H2O as a bonded molecule with 3 atoms, 2 hydrogens and an oxygen. So they're all bonded. A photon hits that, and that creates an electromagnetic polarizing where you've now got a hydroxyl ion over here, which is an H and an O, or hydrogen and oxygen, and a hydrogen over there. So it's now created a charge separation or a polarizing of the molecule. I don't think it breaks the bond. It's still a single molecule of water, but it creates a charge separation between those 2 poles of the water molecule because of the photon hitting. And maybe the pole is one of the hydrogens. I don't know the actual molecular physics of it, but somehow that light wave or light particle of photon hits the H2O, and it creates a photoelectric effect of a polarizing of the electromagnetism of the molecule. So the sun's, back to Jack's comments, the sun's photoelectric effect is what powers life's entire battery, which is water, for free. So water holds charge and creates batteries. So when you got a charged anything, charged water, for instance, and then you connect something to it and connect that to a neutral, something with a neutral electromagnetic charge, then there's going to be conduction. There's going to be a circuit, a current. There's going to be a flow from the pH or electromagnetic extremity of the water, whatever that extremity is, or whatever other source of your battery. There's going to be a flow. Something's going to go to balance it out. Electrons are going to flow one way or the other way. If it's one direction, then we'll call it a negative voltage or a negative current. In the other direction, we'll call it a positive current. But there will be an electromagnetic balancing when you connect 2 things through a conductor that have different charge. Even if it's like pH 9 to pH 10, well, they're still going to tend to balance each other out. It doesn't matter that one isn't neutral. They just have to have different charge, and then there's going to be a current. And voltage is a measurement of the current, but the voltage that arises is a consequence of the pH difference, or the potential hydrogen, the different charge of the 2 things that are connected. So if you've got two things that are alkaline, that'll make a very different current than if you connect something alkaline to something acidic. That can create quite a strong reaction if you combine an acid and a base, or if you allow an acid and a base to be electromagnetically connected. Alright, so the sun, back to Jack's comments, the sun's photoelectric effect is what powers life's entire battery, which is water, for free. So the sun powers water, charging water, creating currents, creating charge. The sun's photons are used thermodynamically for free by cells through the use of water as a conductor and transducer of energy. In other words, my understanding is water captures the energetic capacity of the sun and the sunlight and the photons from the sun. So the power of the sun's photons impart their energy to the trapped electrons, photons, and protons which are inside our cells, and that powers everything. That powers plants, that powers animals. It is the sun's photons. Now, those don't necessarily have to come directly from the sun in the form of light. They could come maybe in the form of a dietary intake of plants, which is basically accumulated structure of solar energy, or a structure that is made and organized through solar energy. Animals on this planet all are organized through solar energy and all contain solar energy. Where does their energy come from? Well, it's basically solar energy in every plant, in every animal. It's all just different forms of solar energy. So that's my aside comment, back to Jack. So what about the use of food for energy? Food is not designed to be a metabolic fuel. So anybody who's in the mode of talking about fat versus carb and so on, Jack Kruse is saying food is not designed to be a metabolic fuel. Light is really the fuel. Charge, electromagnetic, is really the issue. And food is not designed to be a metabolic fuel. So what is it? Jack says it is hormone information that tells you about your redox potential and its charge. So I don't know that I'm going to... he explains redox potential in a minute, but it has to do with your energetic capacity. How much can you transmit energy from one part of your body to another? It's how much conductivity do you have. That would be my short simplification of the idea of redox potential, is how easily charged are you? How easily can energy flow through you? How well can you conduct? How resistant to you are energy would be the other side of the equation, or how conductive are you? So food is a hormone. Food is hormone information that tells you about how well you can conduct energy. That's my kind of interpretation. If your redox potential, if your electromagnetic potential is good, you will have an ability to handle most food. So this for people with a leaky gut issue or other kinds of food allergies. If your redox potential is good, then you'll have an ability to handle most foods. When it is not, you will need to change your environment and diet to one that matches your redox potential best. I'll just keep going. Sometimes changing your diet is not enough. Been saying this forever. ... 10 likes. So the issue is there a match between your environment, which includes light as a major factor, these cycles of light and the actual range of frequency in light? Is there a match between your environment and the food you eat, including where your food came from, what kind of how fresh it is, what was the light exposure? Was it grown in a place where it's summer, or was it grown in the tropics and you live somewhere far from the tropics? There can be mismatches between your external environment and your food. And then the other thing is that modern people pretty much regulate their external environment into such a strange thing where your temperature range, many people are inside at a very consistent range of temperature for the vast majority of time, they're between, say, 65 and 75 degrees, or 60 degrees and 80 degrees, whatever. Their range that they expose themselves to is very, very small relative to most creatures across the entire planet. Tiny range. And our light exposure, we tend to expose ourselves to artificial indoor light at very unusual hours relative to the sunlight, and that creates potential mismatches. And so some of these issues are really hardwired. I'll continue reading from Jack's second comment here. The redox potential is the measure of the current of your body's electric charge, or we could say the voltage of your body's electric charge, coming from the battery of life, which is water. The redox potential is the measure of the current coming from water. How much charge is flowing through the water in your cells, between your cells, and so on. Water is not only life's battery, but it also acts as a liquid crystalline semiconductor, as a plasma semiconductor in the quantum cell, or in any cell. Water is life's battery, so it holds charge and then distributes charge, but it also is a semiconductor, at least when in a liquid crystal or plasma state, which basically you get a liquid crystal state. Well, I don't want to oversimplify it by just saying through charging the water, but things like temperature differential, when your feet and your hands, or your feet and your head, or your feet and your belly are significantly different temperature, that is actually something that your body may be doing on purpose. As I'm saying this as an aside, as a speculation, your body may be doing that on purpose in order to contribute to electrical conductivity. The redox potential is a measure of the electrical potential, or the conductive potential across your cell membranes. The bigger the gradient is, or the range, the contrast, the bigger that gradient is, the more alive and well you remain. While the smaller the gradient becomes, the more likely low energy and disease will result. And by low energy, what we mean is you can't charge your inner waters, you can't pull energy out of your inner waters, so fatigue is a natural consequence there. This isn't really oriented towards being really instructive, like what should you do and so on, but I can start, as I'm scrolling down into comments I haven't read, I can see Jason makes a comment. I guess I'll go ahead and read a little bit here. Now that I have the blue light in check, I can't even remember the last time I flushed the slightest. But he's talking about getting red or rashy from having a lot of niacin, which is a B vitamin. He doesn't have the same response to the nutrient as he did when he had too much blue light. And he says a little bit more about what he has done to put himself back into kind of connection with the natural cycle of light, which is he rises with the sun in the morning with the sun. He wears blue blockers, which would be like amber or orange colored glasses late at night. He might wear those. He uses a blue blocking filter on his phone. I'm not familiar with that, but obviously it's in the same, it's an electromagnetic shield that has the same general kind of purpose. And he uses amber bulbs at night, so an orange light bulb. So instead of having to wear the glasses, the sunglasses or whatever, those orange ones, he just has amber bulbs around him, so he doesn't have to, have the nuisance of the glasses, and just uses amber bulbs. So I've never heard of that either, but these are all relatively simple things. He's saying, these are remarkably easy things to change, that if you change them once and then hold that habit of, being in alignment with the sun and the correct exposure to the different frequencies of light, then, a huge improvement to your health will result. You'll be able to handle foods, nutrients differently. Just as a note, in the morning, the sun, as you may know, has a different, the light frequencies are different in the rising sun from the setting sun. So you can think of sunrise and you have all a typical, typical color that goes with sunrise, and then a typical color or set of colors that go with sunset. And so those are major hormonal triggers for complex organisms such as humans. And as far as how well people sleep, light is a massive trigger, or the shift in light in the evening is a massive trigger that in a healthy person will produce the sleep hormones that will promote a proper sleep. So I made this out of some element of excitement. You can comment or share. I'll note that the group that I was reading from, I'll tell you the title of the Facebook group is Quantum Health, Light, Water, and Magnetism. And generally speaking, this is a group that is exclusively biohackers, people interested in easy, efficient ways to improve their health. And virtually all of them, as far as I know, are people who are interested in the research and speculations and results produced by Jack Kruse, the neurosurgeon. Incidentally, I wrote the preface for Jack Kruse's next book, and it will be, I don't know actually when it's going to be published. I emailed him a couple weeks ago, most recently, in regard to all of that, but he's planning to use my preface that I wrote for him. And prior to me writing the preface, I was interested in his perspective and his insights and the efficiency of the results that he's producing.